course, there's going to be a sharp focus on that Isak situation now, particularly with what's happened tonight, the ban for Gordon, injuries to two key players in midfield, share potentially as well. If you're in Eddie Howe's situation right now, Thierry, what are you saying to those people above you about Alexander Isak?
I think he's been saying to them since the beginning that he has to stay. We all know that, but sometimes when you are the club and you're a manager, it's out of your hands. What's happening when it's in the end of what's happening above. But you know, the solution might be him staying. I said before, and I will say it again, it looked like the best thing for everybody was for him to leave. I said if he apologized and come back, maybe he can stay. But because of the situation of what happened tonight with all the injuries, even more so now, you know, that you have him, make him stay.
Do you sense there might be a strengthening of Newcastle's resolve, Jamie? We saw the powers that be, pitch side at full time, consoling Eddie Howe.
I think there'll be a feeling amongst the supporters that, you know, Liverpool have just done us in the last minute, they're not getting our man. That type of feeling. I think Anthony Gordon now being out for 3 games probably doesn't help the situation in terms of maybe Liverpool getting their hands on him. But I think it all comes down to if Newcastle could get 2 forwards in this week. They put a bid in for Larson, you mentioned, before the game. So they're obviously looking to bring those players in. I think if they bring 2 forwards in, I think they do sell them to Liverpool and get the money in. Because what they've got up there, and since Eddie Howe come in, is something pretty special in terms of that connection between the sort of, I mentioned, the pitch and the crowd. It goes back to sort of Keegan days, and Keegan's teams didn't win a trophy. This team have won a trophy. You see that fight in the second half. They can't have someone between now and maybe the next transfer window diminish that. And if he's not willing to sort of give it everything, and he's saying he's injured when he's fully fit and he's not training right, there's a cloud over your club. And Eddie Howe will be getting asked about that press conference after press conference. I actually think it's in the best interest of Newcastle to sell him to Liverpool. And that's not me as a Liverpool fan, because I'm not 100% with the Isak transfer. I've said that before. I'm thinking from a Newcastle point of view, my experience in those situations, get your 2 strikers in and get as much money as you can and keep creating that sort of atmosphere and intensity that they've got right now.
So do you think what happened tonight, because you lost Gordon, because, you know, the injuries, and do you think that doesn't change a tiny bit the situation?
Maybe a little bit, the Gordon situation, but I know how the fans emotionally...
Yeah.
But those emotions could be in the boardroom as well, Jamie.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, listen, they might be, but I'm thinking from Eddie Howe's point of view, everybody gets emotional, and I totally understand that. Liverpool's an emotional football club. That's why the passion for the game is so strong in both cities. But Eddie Howe's the one who's going to have to be going in those press conferences twice a week, getting asked about Alexander Isak all the time, and about a player who's probably not involved in his team.
Maybe in a week's time, when the transfer window is shut and Alexander Isak is still at St James's Park, it might be because of the meeting that happened this afternoon. We don't know. Maybe
or tonight,
they
whenever.
got in front of him and convinced him they would offer him a new contract. Maybe that's been presented to him already. Maybe there is talk of release clauses within that.
Thierry, you said earlier on, and we've had this at Liverpool, by the way, with Luis Suarez, I think almost like apologising and coming back into the fold. You said he could apologise and be taken back. But you sometimes think when a player's gone that far the other way against his teammates and his club for, say, you know, making promises they haven't kept, do you think a player, when he's gone that far, will apologise and say, I was in the wrong?
Look, I do believe you. We've been in dressing rooms. I will accept it. I made mistakes in my life. If someone is honest enough and can do it and say, look, I wanted to leave, it didn't happen, but I will be fully committed to the cause, I'm sorry, then let's...
No, I'm not talking about his teammates accepting him. I think teammates would accept him. I'm talking about himself. Do you think the fact how far he's gone against his own club, do you think he'd be big enough to say, I got this totally wrong and I'm out of order?
Look, I've seen it before. I've seen guys that really wanted to stay and look, are going to stay, and then they couldn't go over it, because they didn't really accept the decision that they've taken. They were sorry, but they didn't accept it, if you know what I mean. But if you go back to, I've seen players that missed a transfer window. I remember Luis Suarez was supposed to go to Arsenal. Right? He didn't make it that way. He stayed, and he had a great season. So I do believe that at one point he needs to have an honest discussion with himself. And you know, sometimes agent gets involved, and I don't know what gets involved. Your family gets involved. At one point, you need to sit in a room and have an honest discussion with yourself. What do I want?
But ultimately, Thierry, a lot went against Newcastle tonight in the sense that they were without Isak. They lose
Yes.
Anthony Gordon for a red card. They are 2-0 down. They've
Yes.
had injuries to players as well. Yet they found their way back into this football match. Is that what they should take away from tonight's experience? That spirit?
Yes, of course. But the coach said it. Like it's very difficult to take this one. What you want is the points. You want the points. And yes, after that, you're like, if you lose, you can lose like that. But ultimately, what you want is points. And I've seen that before. I've seen that crowd being able and that team being able to turn around a game. I remember Arsenal being 4-0 up there and the game finished 4-4 in 20 minutes or whatever it was. So I've seen that before. But the situation of having the Isak situation, losing that game, didn't start well against Villa, although they played really well. But you played 2 games really well, but you have nothing to show at the end. And you have injuries at the end. Sorry, Jim.
The manager's more important than Isak. What they've got in the job that manager's done at that football club, he is a special manager. I'm not just talking about for Newcastle, I'm talking about managers in the Premier League. The job he's done there from where they were to where they are now. I'm not saying they're going to lose the manager, but if you're talking about players or manager going, he's much more important than Isak.
Look, if Isak stays, we all know that he's going to have to get the heart of the Newcastle
fans
back. Some of them, I'm sure, are like, okay, we understand, maybe not a lot, in all fairness, but it is doable. I've seen that before, and at the end of the day, you don't want a player like that not on the field, not being well. But at one point, you have to be honest with yourself and stop listening to what's happening around you.
I wish I had a crystal ball. See how it all panned out over the next 7 days. It's going to be absorbing.